All right, let's do this. We're going to invite our first panel up. I'm going to ask Brian to come up. Brian is, I'm going to just tell you a little story. He and I got on the phone and we started brainstorming what's happening with CUNA Mutual and Ventures Group and so on. And in that conversation, he just told me that it's really changing. The world's changing out there. And all of a sudden, we were off and running. So Ventures Group, funding, looking at the future with Fintechs. So he's going to lead the panel. And then we want to have Jennifer, if you will. She's the CEO at SCE Credit Union, but more importantly, she's a leader who wants to push forward. She wants to make it happen. And I just, I love the way she's doing that. If you could look at her to-do list, okay, we'd all go home, all right? It's crazy. Okay, and then our very own Tony Patel. Tony, come on up. And most of you know, Origins, and if anything, he's been helping us with income and making sure credit unions have bottom lines and looking ahead to the future in so many ways. So he's going to do that with us. And then Chris from Constellation. Come on up, Chris. And he's innovating the member experience with partners throughout the industry. So their title, welcome. The title of their panel is, ROI or Oh My. So I'll turn it over to you, Brian.
Well, thank you so much, Susan. Great to see everybody here. Kind of felt like the price is right. Chris Kovacs, come on down. You're the next contestant. Well, great to be here. A couple weeks ago, I fractured some ribs. So if you hear me either groan or utter some profanities, it's either I moved wrong or Chris said something that I disagree with. But we'll kick things off.
Very possible.
Very possible. So I want to start with a little quote here. Then we'll guess maybe who said this. Hint, he's a CEO from a small bank in New York City. Absolutely, we should be scared shitless about fintechs. Oh, someone's heard this already. Yes, well, maybe others in here. We just have to get quicker, better, faster. I expect to see very, very tough, brutal competition in the next 10 years. Someone uttered the person who said that. Say that a little bit louder. Jamie Dimon, our buddy from JP Morgan Chase. The guy who, I feel sorry, he only has a tech budget that's twice the size of the credit union industry combined, and so I really feel for him. But I think he sees something that, many of us that have been kind of living and breathing fintech for the last 6, 7, 8 years is that I do think that competition, is going to be brutal. It already is starting to become brutal as fintechs start to gain market share and big banks spend billions and billions and billions of dollars. And guess what? They're going after your members. And they're not going to let up. It's not going to get any easier. So, kind of in the spirit of Halloween, I thought I would start out with some spooky facts and statistics here. Funding for fintechs last year exceeded $130 billion. Anyone want to guess what the tech budget is for the credit union industry combined? It's less than $130 billion. It's $6 billion. So $6 billion versus $130 billion. You can do a lot with that money, and they do a lot. They burn through a lot of money except some of our portfolio companies. Chris, you guys do a great job there. Another scary fact, the number of fintechs in North America now outnumber credit unions 2 to 1. There's about 10,000 fintech companies in North America now, and credit unions are about 5,000. Now I think we're heading into a rough market. My guess is we'll see that number actually maybe decrease by a little bit, but the fact is there's a lot of companies out there. Fintechs have knocked credit unions out as the number one lender for unsecured personal loans. So Fintechs back in 2010 had about 1% market share. Credit unions were the largest issuer back in 2010 of unsecured consumer loans. Today, Fintechs have just shy of 50% market share. And guess what? There are more Fintechs now that are hungry for other loans. Just take a look at SoFi, and you know, they now are kind of a full-service bank, if you will. Now my screen just went blank. So now I'll have to try to remember some of these off the top of my head. Anyone know the Jeopardy theme song music? Oh, you guys are good. All right, I'm back in business. Back in business here. Couple of other things. Again, I don't want to make this all doom and gloom, but I do want to kind of drive home the point that, you know, like the world's changing really fast. You know, a couple of things. You know, the big banks I mentioned, they're pumping billions into their tech budgets. The 5 big banks, again, all spend more individually than credit unions combined. And then I think what maybe is, you know, also pretty concerning is what some of these major retailers are looking to do. You look at Walmart. There's just an announcement that came out about 2 weeks ago in the paper. I don't know if you all saw it, but they're partnering with a fintech to provide checking accounts. And they're going to start by offering checking accounts to their 1.6 million employees within the next 12 months, and then after that, roll it out to the general public. That's not good. Apple partnered with Goldman Sachs, launched the Apple Card. Amazon's partnered with Affirm to provide buy now, pay later financing. So you got big retailers getting in the mix now as well. So I've been, you know, really, like I said, in the fintech space for, you know, about 7 years now, talking to credit union leaders. I can say, you know, quite honestly, back in 2016, 2017, you know, I tried to sound some alarm bells, and I think the industry, for the most part, was very dismissive. I think a lot of credit union leaders kind of thought of fintechs as, you know, 2 guys operating out of their mom's basement. And, you know, they weren't too concerned. You know, credit unions say, you know, we provide best-in-class services to our members, and we can hang our hat on that. And, you know, I now am like, you know, kind of beyond the point of raising alarm bells, and there are some credit unions out there doing an amazing job in terms of working with fintechs. But if you're sitting on the sidelines, if you're not concerned about it, I mean, this sort of is, you know, a plea really to get off the sidelines, get proactive, because, you know, every day, every month, every year that passes, you know, we're going to fall further and further behind as an industry from where the big banks and where the fintechs and where those large retailers are going. So we're going to, you know, have a lively discussion here, I hope. But we're going to turn things over. And Jen, you want to provide some opening comments here?
Well, the headline was to be scary, and I'm not that scary. I don't know. But anyway, we just had our planning session yesterday with our board of directors, and we talked about the amount of work and the amount of lift that really has to take place in the organization in order for us to even you know, become a part of this, even catch up a little bit, right? But then we talk about the escalation of the speed. It's going to get even faster. And that's what keeps me up at night, is how do we adapt that fast, right? Are we really thinking ahead? I have a 16-year-old daughter. You know, I've already lost her as a customer because we're not providing the services that she wants. I make her use a credit union account, and then she goes, "Oh, this app is terrible. I can't do anything with it. Can I have that Venmo credit card I want, that Venmo debit card attached to my transactions?" I'm like, "No, you can't have it." but she's still asking for it. That and a puppy, but she can't have that either. But it's really about the speed, and the next generation. Is our value proposition enough? You talked about service. You know, we talked yesterday about access and service. Those are table stakes. I mean, that's just the basic stuff, just to even be in existence. Where we can really shine is our value proposition, but it doesn't really truly connect with our next market. We were talking, was it the generation alpha now? I don't know.
Oh, no, that after Gen Z is Gen Alpha.
So I don't know about Gen Alpha, but I do know that the marketplace is definitely changing, the demands. How, when I look at our product stock, we still have CDs, right? We have these money market accounts that pay very little in dividends. Are those really the products and services that this next generation wants? I'm going to guess not. I'm going to find it very hard to sell a CD to my 16-year-old daughter for her to understand that. So what are we doing to really innovate our offering and our product line and really to connect with this next generation? That's pretty scary.
Am I next?
Tony, yes.
All
You're
right.
next.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see you all. I just got in this morning. I got up at 4 o'clock this morning and took a flight over here from Orange County. And I wasn't as smart as Aaron Mendez, paid for my early check-in. So I thought I would change a little bit, but this is what I flew in today. And they just text me, my room's available, so I'm going to run right out and get it. But it's great seeing everybody. At Origins, we really focus on helping credit unions make more loans and improve your efficiencies. That's our focus. And hopefully we've helped you do that over the years. This year we're going to do over $75 billion in funded loans, or helping credit unions do that, let's just say. And I would just echo Brian's, fears a little bit, but also I think Brian's, over the last 10 years, Community Mutual's really helped us understand that Fintechs kind of need us more than we need them in many ways. And I think partnering with them is definitely an option that I would encourage credit unions to do. But I think doing it in a group is better than doing it by themselves. I just finished my board planning session, and I think I have Aaron Mendez and Bill Cheney here on my board, and I used the theme, do we want to continue to hunt together? And I think our chairman, Jim LaFoon, coined this phrase, that he'd rather hunt together than hunt alone, and I think you'll be much more successful that way. I think that's what we need to do too in working with Fintechs, is work with them to hunt together, but as a group of credit unions. I don't think one credit union is going to make a Fintech successful. The ways that we can do that today, we're integrating Zest AI. I think they're here into our platform. Informed IQ is another one for back office process. So I think trying to do that is going to be more successful. I don't think there is many of them to compete against us today. There's a few. He mentioned SoFi. They didn't need credit unions. They've done a very good job of competing against us. But for the most part, a lot of the Fintechs need us more than we need them. And I think they strategically partnering with them and investing in them. The other thing I would just say on that is, if hopefully Chris and myself, and Origins and the co-op and other big CUSOs out there are helping credit unions stay relevant, and owning and controlling your delivery channels, I think, is more important. In the fintech world, the one thing I worry a bit about is, as we do invest in them, they're looking for one thing, and that's some kind of event, and that may or may not be good for you in the long run. And I just think that we need to, if we can, try to own 50+% of these CUSOs that we're starting, in ways that we can own and control our delivery channels. And again, I really am looking forward to see Chris's company mature and scale up. And I know you guys got a lot of good stuff going on, but that is a very high cost area for credit unions. Mobile banking is, if you guys didn't know what he does, that's his that's his gig.
One of the things.
One of the things, but main thing, and it's a very expensive thing, right? For credit unions, and you're able to manage that and control that, I think, in a much more effective way. So I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you, sir. I guess I'm going to throw the fireballs then, guys? Is that what's going to happen? Okay. I also have a 16-year-old, a son, and who was already a credit union member. And I walked him into a credit union because he needed a check card, because he's going to start driving and he needs to buy gas. So I said, okay, well, we're going to go online and we're going to open you up an account, son. He's already got a savings. We're just going to open a checking. Couldn't do it online. Had to go to the branch. took 45 minutes for him to open a checking account at a branch. Now, this credit union, like others, really touts that we give service, right? And if I was going to throw a fireball, I would say, strip yourself of the thinking that that makes a difference anymore. Because the way you've been accustomed to delivering service is to a customer group that is different than the one you're trying to recruit. So after 45 minutes of service, we walk out of the branch, and he looks at me and says, took me 5 minutes to open my account on Coinbase on my phone. You guys have a lot of work to do, right? So what's interesting about that, though, is then he got a check. And I said, great, you got a checking account? Go on the app, download it. Not ours. Go down, download the app, sign up to use it, and deposit your check. And he said, Dad, they're going to send me a code, but it's going to go to a phone number that looks like our old home phone number. Oh, so in 45 minutes of service, we didn't confirm his mobile number. What? So I said to him, you got to call the call center, right? Right? So what's happening in fintech world, and where I think we as credit unions, and I am a credit union person through and through. Like, this is my 30th year in credit unions, guys. I did in fact start when I was 17. And I bleed credit union, whatever that color is, right? What we've got to do is understand that it's about convenience, right? Whether it's Uber opening up checking accounts and debit accounts, or it's Walmart, or it's Amazon, it's about meeting the consumer, the member of the future, where they are. They are not in your branch. They are not on your website. You've got to meet them where they are. And mobile is going to become super, super important, even more so than it is today. The reality is that the fintechs who are out there, who will be banks soon, right? And banks will become fintechs as well. They're not inventing anything new. They're taking things that we've had for 20 years and just like a Rubik's Cube, changing them around and saying, oh, you want a credit builder card. This is what Chime does. You want a credit builder card. Great. How about a card that you swipe and then it transfers the balance from your checking account? It's called a charge card, folks. We've had that for a long time. American Express does that transfer once a month. They just do it immediately following the charge. Same tools are there. What we've got to think about is meeting the consumer where they are, really understanding that next generation of credit union consumer, meeting them where they are, and then using the services that we know very, very well to provide them with good experiences later on.
Very well said, by all three of you. Thanks. Well, let's jump into the Q&A portion. And again, if there are questions from the audience, please just shout them out. Tony, you kind of said, hey, fintechs need credit unions more than credit unions need them. So true or false? I mean, can credit unions build most of the technology offered by fintechs better, faster, and cheaper?
I would venture to say that fintechs are our innovation labs. I think they are ones that can think and do things faster than we can. And we've got good ideas too, and I think we've built some QSOs over the years on it, but they're just so much faster at it and can execute. So I do think working with them as partners and looking to them as the innovators, I think is a good way to go.
Yeah, Chris or Jed, anything to add to that?
I was just going to say, they're not bound by the thinking that we've had, right, for the last 10, 15, 20, or in some cases 30 years, right? They don't have the same preconceived notions. They don't have the same mental frameworks for assessing problems, right? So what a fintech gives you the ability to do is to take a whole new look at the opportunity in business. There are fintechs that we work with because we operate in this horizon between credit unions and fintechs, right? And there's credit unions we work with, and I'm like, how the hell did you figure that out? Right? We've known about that problem for 20 years, and just their thinking was different, and how they solved the problem was different. So I agree. I think it's a matter of using them as an innovation source, getting behind them, getting funding. Because if the other part of your question was, can we build it all? It's very expensive to build things from scratch, right? There's a whole change in thinking around. Yeah, yeah.
By the way, you are a fintech, just so you know.
I am a fintech. That's right. I'm a QSO and a fintech. It's very expensive to build things from scratch, but because they're hungry and because they're starting out at a smaller level and they don't have the same mental barriers, they are able to move more quickly.
And I'll just add that I talked about speed of execution. There's no possible way that we could build this stuff and get it out to the market. And so if we have to partner with the fintechs in order to have more options, right? Pure and simple. But we want to control the experience.
We actually had this experience at Coastal, so I would really caution you against this, right? So Coastal invented video tellering, and we would have all of these institutions, many of you perhaps, came through our headquarters looking at the PTMs, as we called them. NCR now calls them ITMs. Even sheikhs from Dubai came in to see these things. And they would look at the machine, and they'd be like, okay, I have a strategy. And they'd walk away. That's mimicry. That's not strategy. If I look at Chime and I just try to mimic what I see on the screen, and I don't have the user experiences like checking up what your current mobile phone number is, right? When I'm talking to you, you're not going to deliver the experience, right? So I really caution you about seeing something and just trying to reproduce what you see. There's a lot more behind the scenes that makes that possible, and that's where credit unions can really make a difference.
So let's jump to embedded finance. Does everyone kind of know roughly what embedded finance is when you kind of use that term? I mean, a lot of the embedded finance, it's where the lending occurs at the moment of need, the point of sale. Obviously, that's been sort of a big buzzword in the industry. So I'll ask each of you. So embedded finance, big opportunity for credit unions or the great disintermediator?
Well, that's probably closest to me because that's all we think about is, I really would rephrase it to be, how is the top of the funnel changing? How is the loan application process changing for your members today versus what it was 10 years ago? Now, as you guys know, we do a lot of indirect lending. We've done that for many years, and still probably 80+% of loans are still done at the point of sale, at the dealership, okay? It was probably as high as 90% at one time. But where that's changing now, and for those of you, I see a few people here that have seen my talk on the future of mobility, and basically it's saying that, between electric cars, and autonomous cars, that lending's gonna change in a big way. And I can tell you the OEMs right now are not just building, by the way, 150 new EV cars between now and 2026, 25 to 30 of them coming out this year. But the EV companies that are really just, the Rivians of the world, the Lucids of the world, they're gonna make loans like Tesla does, which is, basically direct. And that is gonna be, I think, change a lot of how we have to, again, I said, hunt together. We got to find ways to get into their lending stream. And we are talking to them about that, and we do have some inroads, but they're so small right now. They are just got one bank. I actually just ordered a Rivian, and yesterday they told me it's finally coming in. I ordered it about 700 days ago, by the way. And it's probably going to come in the next month. And one of the things that they said to me is that they have Rivian financing, which I believe is with US Bank, or one of the big banks that they partnered with. But you have that phenomenon. And then the other big one, though, is the OEMs are the place where most people look for new cars. And a lot of people are buying cars sight unseen these days. So OEMs are now going to be putting the financing in at their level. And then it's going to drop into the dealership where they get the loan, where they get the car. So we are also working with OEMs today to try to integrate credit unions into that space. But that is going to be definitely a big disruptor for us. So there's probably many other areas that you guys probably are aware of too, that besides the automotive area where the top of funnel is changing. But I do think the top of funnel is going to change, and it's going to be more online.
Yeah, I call that maybe one of the shock events for the industry in terms of the impact of just sort of how auto loans are purchased and financed. You had talked about fintechs kind of taking over consumer lending. If now auto lending changes dramatically, that's a big shock event to have to adjust to. Jen, any thoughts on what Tony shared or other points of view?
Well, just to add to that, we have Rocket Mortgage, by the way, for mortgage lending that, are conduits. But talking about like somebody like Walmart, Walmart wanted to be a bank, right? We heard that for years. They kept trying to apply for charters. They even at one heard, I don't know if I can't fact check this one, but that they actually tried to want to apply for a credit union charter. And what they did, partner with a fintech because the bank probably couldn't offer it, but they're just using a bank on the back end. So think about what that's going to do to marginalize our operation, right? I mean, we already don't make a lot of money on those accounts anyway, but now you've got a big retail player like that really driving that margin down. That's all Walmart does is grind that down the same way that they've grind down at our interchange. So when you think about that kind of threat, I think it's something to worry about, and we need to find other ways of directing our business so that we can still be here for the going concern.
One of the trends in fintech is that they're looking for somebody who can be the account behind their service, right? We were actually contacted by an institution who asked if we knew a fintech that could help them become a BIN sponsor for fintechs, right? So the idea that there would be an account run by a fintech that's sponsored by the institution underneath the covers, because they said we're not earning money. Right, we really need to. We're trying everything we can do to find new ways to earn money. So even if that means we're just the back office, we're just the cage, like in a casino metaphor, right? We'll take it because that's all we can get right now. I mean, that's really disturbing and disruptive.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, again, the point about Walmart wanting to get into banks and kind of changes in the auto space. I mean, Walmart is rolling out a car buying program. So, they're going to get into that space as well. One of our companies that we've invested in is powering that technology, though. And I think that creates an opportunity for credit unions through that partnership to hopefully get a big chunk of those loans. But how about blockchain? That's always everyone's favorite topic. I'm going to, Chris, go back to you. Believer or all hype?
I am 100% believer. So I know people spent COVID doing lots of cool things like learning how to make soda bread and weave and things like that. I spent 2 years learning everything I could about blockchain and cryptocurrency. And what I learned scared the hell out of me, right? And it's blockchain, decentralized finance. We've had really great speakers like Lamont Black on this who have really shared the vision for this in the future. But it's going to disrupt finance as we know it, which is really hard to say to a group of people who work in finance. But the reality is you need to go learn everything you can and do away with the thinking around, oh, well, there's a crypto winner and yeah, Chris lost this much in his portfolio. Yeah. It's the technology that's important, and that technology is going to change the game. And it is a perfect example of where you see fintechs coming out. And how many of you are going to Money 2020? Ooh, there's a sign. Last year, 50% of the exhibitors in that hall were crypto and blockchain. And I know of probably 5 credit union people who were there out of that 10,000. Doesn't mean I know everybody, but it's pretty close. So I would just tell you that do not blow it off. This is an opportunity. We've got to get things going around it. I know Visions is doing a great job putting together some digital asset user groups on this. We need to learn as much as we can about this. As a reformed developer, it scares me about how powerful it is and what it can do, and that we aren't prepared for it at all.
And I think it's going to happen faster than everyone thinks. I feel like progress over the last 3 years in terms of real tangible use cases, the technology being built out, and this is one where again, things feel like they move slow until they don't, and you wake up some morning and the entire industry is disrupted. Are people familiar with the company Figure? So Mike Cagney, who's the former founder and CEO of SoFi, launched a company called Figure, and it's leveraging blockchain. Kind of the original use case or first test case was to be direct-to-consumer lender in the HELOC space. They're now licensing out the technology. They've created 5 different use cases for blockchain that are in production. So I know Mike's going to actually, he's really interested in working with credit unions. I know we've got an event with maybe a few of you CEOs that we're having next month in Denver. Mike's going to come out there. He's going to sit down and spend, and his top leadership team with credit unions of how they can leverage some of the technology that Figure is using. So I think it's going to sweep over us I think faster than we can imagine. And but Tony and Jen, what are your thoughts?
I would just echo. I agree. I think the technology is, and it's not the blockchain technology that invented Bitcoin. It's all the new flavors of blockchain that are coming along that are going to reinvent contracts effectively. Paper's going to go away. You're going to see, both. Hopefully, you'll see the DMV go away. Wouldn't that be great?
Yes.
But it really will be, I think, a fast-changing world as a lot of these fintechs, and we're actually working with Lamont Black on a project to look at how we can use NFTs, non-fungible tokens, the things that are in the metaverse right now that everybody's paying a bunch of money for. We actually think it could be used for real business purposes and could help reinvent kind of like the titling and contracting, and so we're looking at that now too. And I've talked to Figure a half a dozen times, and I'm still trying to figure them out. No, they really are onto something, but they have changed their kind of what they want and where they're going, and it's just like any kind of innovation. Though they're looking at a lot of different things. So but I do think they're something to be to looked at too, and it's definitely exciting stuff.
Just want to open it up now and see, if you will. Yes, Renee, raise your hand, ask a question.
Need to know. You don't need, I don't need mic. Need to know. You said 10,000 fintechs scared me to death because.
That was yesterday.
Okay, 10,000 fintechs. How many are led by people of color and women?
Not enough, to be quite candid. When we look at these venture-backed companies, the statistics are around north of 95% of all venture capital is going to companies founded and led by white men, and that's a huge problem. We actually created the Discovery Fund, so we have a venture fund that we launched in 2021 that only invests in companies that are led by diverse founders. So these are women founders of color, LGBTQ founders. And many of these are also really kind of looking to serve and address the financial challenges of many of those diverse groups that they come from. And we hope to change that. We've already invested, I think, in 16 companies in just over 21, a little less than 21 months. So yeah, that is unfortunate, but and we're seeing some really great ideas and these companies doing really well, and hopefully, the money will flow when these founders can show that they can build companies just as well as any white man. Yeah, Elizabeth McCluskey leads the Discovery Fund, and she's joining one of the panels tomorrow, so I'm sure she'll have a lot more to share on that.
We're asking you to use the mic so the recording.
Yeah, absolutely. So first underground, I swore to myself I'd stay quiet and just observe, but this is just too good. So huge red flag for me when the entire audience laughed about a young member reaching out to a contact center. So we've talked a lot about what's happening in the industry. What are credit unions doing, or what do they need to do more of in general to better align themselves, to act more like a fintech? Because in my opinion, Diamond's, he's wrong. Fintechs have already lapped us. They're already doing most things we do much better. We just refuse to acknowledge it and then work toward a solution.
Yeah, how many times have you called Amazon here? Anybody? Anybody talk to anybody at Amazon? Yeah, that's why I think they laughed, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for the opportunity to mention this. This is about that mimicry that I was talking about, right? What we see consumer-facing fintech, and we think that's the priority, right? All of you are experiencing rising expenses in your back offices, right? Fintechs can come in and help you with your back office and help with that experience and really drive, and especially around analytics in some cases, knowledge about your members, knowledge about consumers that are going to help do that. So whether it's applying artificial intelligence in the back office, that's going to have you're going to break some eggs in that case, because maybe in the end you don't need as many people, but we'll find other places where they can contribute. But I would strongly encourage you, don't think of fintech just as member facing. There is a equally popular, and there's a lot of great fintechs out there that can help your back office as well.
So thank you, guys. You mentioned 10,000 fintechs, and our credit union has partnered with a handful of fintechs. We've had a great relationship with them. They exist today. They're still here today, and they're helping us serve our members. We've also partnered with fintechs that no longer exist, that aren't around. And that's concerning when you have members that you've handed off effectively to them in some way, even though we control the experience. So my question is about sort of the weeding out of fintechs down the road. We've seen an erosion of gross margins in the fintech industry. They're simply not where they need to be to survive. And so you're seeing burn rates. They're running through money very quickly, millions and millions of dollars every month. And so my concern is about partnering with somebody that's not going to exist down the road. So any thoughts on that?
I mean, obviously, I think a couple of excellent points. I mean, selection of your fintech partners is really critical. And I tell credit unions, look at who their investors are. That's not a question that's probably on too many vendor diligence checklists, for that very reason. Ask people like that, have an inside look at their financials. Fintechs guard their financials, furiously. They don't turn them over, because in many cases they are, not yet profitable. I would say sort of the market's pretty volatile right now, and so, it's amazing when I think those fintechs realize sort of that the tap is going to be, shut off or at least turned way down, how suddenly they're becoming much more judicious about how they spend money. And so we're seeing more companies that are getting close to cash flow break even or EBITDA positive. So hopefully that will change. But unfortunately, I think the alternative is I'm just not going to then partner with fintechs, because there might be some risk, or there might be a partner that isn't around 5 years from now. I don't know that there's necessarily other options other than just kind of maintaining status quo. And I think that, in my view, is a much bigger risk to the future of credit unions.
I'd like to add that, I'm sitting with an amazing group of people here right now, and I'm partnering with all of you because we can't do it alone. Mm-hmm. So I really lean on my partners to do the vetting for us and weed out some of that. The other thing I said earlier about controlling the experience, because if you have the opportunity to be able to control the experience, if that fintech is no longer supporting you, you can plug somebody else in. So I think that creating a space that's universal and able to adapt allows us to provide the service to the members, but they don't know who's in the back end. And that, I think, is a really important part. The third thing is, I wanted to add is, we just had our planning session, I mentioned that earlier, and our board is supportive of allowing us to have a little venture capital money as well. And that is so that we can invest in some of these partners. And they may not flourish, but how do we know until we get in there and start to learn and develop from them? So I think that is a kind of a different mindset, because we're used to making proposals that have a ROI, and we have to prove our due diligence. And now we're going to pivot and say, we like this concept, let's learn from it, maybe mimic a little bit, but be able to reconnect.
So Tony, on that, we've got somebody that wants to ask a question
Okay,
right there.
okay.
Zach, was there a question? Yep.
Hi, this is Kirsten Trusco. Thank you, Zach, for the first time here. Spent a lot of time working with Fintechs and FIs. And I wanted to comment on the why there's not that much venture capital money going to underserved populations. Maybe there's a couple of ideas. Money 2020 has had a Rise Up program that helps to bring women and underserved through and to mentor, and I got to be on the founding committee on that and to help with that, and it's been delightful. And then there's also things like Falls Fintech, which is founded by a bank, by a community bank, and they've got a really cool process of bringing fintechs through, and they get to see a whole lot of them and narrow it down, get to serve on that board too, so maybe those are ideas.
Great. Great information. So we've got one last question here, Kevin, and then we'll make closing statements.
Great panel. Building on that concern around fintech's viability, I think we approach this discussion from a very binary perspective, meaning I'm either innovative and I'm going to work with the fintech, or I'm not going to do anything. Could you provide some practical advice to credit unions on the gray area? The process around innovation, the test and learn process, proof of concepts, it's not necessarily all or nothing. And I think credit unions are uncomfortable with making imperfect decisions.
That is 100% true, and that's actually what I was gonna tap into with Todd. There's a mental barrier that many credit union leaders have, and that's I can never take anything away. Okay, yes you can, right? You can absolutely take away things, and you need to take away things. Otherwise, you end up looking like that, Walmart aisle after, Black Friday, and there's stuff all over the place, right? So, you have to be willing to take things away. And the way you do that is through agile development, agile practices with your solutions, right? You take something away, you give something. The next generation expects things to change. They don't expect you to sit with the same application for 5 years. Right? You've got to be showing them that you're thinking about them, that you're doing those innovations. And I would just add that takes time, that takes testing, that takes experience. But if I go in and say, I can never lose anything, it's got to be 100% perfect before I go live, you're not the right person to work with a fintech, frankly. And I would say, if you really like somebody and they're struggling financially, buy them.
Okay, so thank you very much. Let's wrap up. But we have to keep this moving, okay? So it's got to be a quick question.
Yeah, it's not a question. So basically, in a credit unions jumping from where they are to fintech, right? There is a people tech and a bank tech in between. We don't talk much about. People are busy 24/7 doing their grunt work. We are not releasing them from that. And the second part is our core systems are stuck in legacy. We have not done anything in that. So without that directly jumping to fintech, the problems what the gentleman mentioned, those will happen. That's my thought.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you very much. Any final comments? They're going to all be here, so you can talk to them later. Let's thank them. Thank you.